Welcome back to episode 2 of What Drives You here at Paper Transport. I'm Keith Stelzer. I am our Vice President of Safety and Recruiting here at Paper Transport.
Joe Shevchik, the Vice President of Business Development.
And Wes Kornowski, Vice President of Operations.
All right, so a fun topic to get us started today, a little non-business talk. As you both look forward to summer, I know myself, I'm going to date myself here, but what's a song that you think of as you head into summer that kind of gets you ready for some good old Wisconsin weather?
Well, we're in summer now, and it doesn't necessarily feel like it today, but one of my favorite summer songs, trucking related, would be Convoy by C.W. McCall. And if you ever saw the movie Convoy with Chris Christopherson, you know it takes place in the Southwest where it's extremely hot, and I don't quite understand how they're able to survive in those old sleeper berths. And it definitely reminds me on the really hot summer days how much worse it could be in the Southwest.
Definitely.
All right, so I took the question a little bit differently.
So I'm not gonna go that path.
It's been 20 years since I've thought about a summer song, so I'm going to go with Getting Jiggy with It, Will Smith.
There we go. All right. For me, I more down Joe's path as well. I just have to go with anything Bob Marley. I know that sounds silly, but I used to just love jamming to some Bob Marley on the way to the golf course, and that was my thing. So, all right. So moving on, as we kind of jump back in, topic this time around is really similar to last time. I mean, the hot topic is still the market. It's still what's going on, what's going to happen. So as we think about that, Wes, what's your take on the spot market right now?
Well, right now, what we've been seeing, and I guess we can probably just rely on the data, is that it appears that we may have found somewhat of a bottom in April. And through the month of May, we've seen a tick up in rates by about 5 cents a mile. And that's holding now into the first 2 weeks of June, which is promising. When I look at it year over year, in May of 2022, the DAT national line haul rate was somewhere around $1.93, and today we're right around $1.66. So there's still a 30-cent delta from where we were at last year, which is going to be a lot to overcome as we're going into the summer months. July and June are sometimes a bit slower just because there's more people taking vacations and all that sort of stuff. So it remains to be seen if we actually did experience, I hate calling it a bottom because things can always happen that are outside of our control, whether it's the labor disputes on the ports or it's the student loan forgiveness, or there's just always a lot of variables out there that can hurt the consumer. But things look pretty positive right now as far as us climbing out of the hole that we're in. It's a deep hole.
Yeah, I think last time we got together, we just weren't sure if we were there yet, and I think it has bounced a little bit at least. At least there's some promise.
But what's important is the context for Paper Transport, and that only 10% of our total revenue is exposed to that spot market activity. Right. Really what it comes down to is it's an indicator as to where rates are headed into the future, more so than it is a deleterious effect on Paper Transport. We just watch it as another data point as we move forward. So, we watch it. Does it sink us? No.
Right.
We just want to make sure that we're staying attuned to what's happening in the market so we know how to interact.
All right, next step I want to jump into is a conversation about the strategy of our shippers, right? So, Joe, if you're a shipper right now and we are where we are, what are your steps? What are your thoughts? What are you strategically thinking about at this point?
Yeah, I think this one's a real challenge. With the contract market falling yet, what we're seeing in bids is, one, a lot of bid activity, right? And probably more frequent bids. I think that's a result of the last 2 years or 3 years of disruption. Right. Shippers wanting to be priced to the market. And I think that makes sense, right? They probably took a lot of pressure when carriers are constantly coming back to them trying to raise rates. They want to be on top of that. So more frequent bids is what we're seeing. And I think that makes sense because there's a really complicated market thing going on right now. So contract rates continuing to fall. Wes just talked about spot rates starting to come up. So the obvious result of that at some point is these two things cross. And now spot rates are higher than contract rates. And if you're a carrier, you're likely going back to the shipper at that point, right? So I think shippers, when they do that RFP, if it's not a quick bid cycle, they've got themselves a challenging decision to make, right? Do they stick by a carrier that they maybe know, and maybe that price is higher, but maybe they can trust that rate for longer? I think it's a tough decision to make if I'm sitting in the shipper's chair right now, and just what the market is timed right now, a little bit challenging, just because of all of that pressure on contract rates yet in an area where spot rates are beginning to climb.
So, kind of taking it even another step further, what about the dedicated or the 3PL side of the world? How does that fit into the mix at this point, right? I mean, obviously you have the volatility, what spot has come and done, you have contract dropping, but what would you be thinking about on the dedicated or even on the brokerage side of the world as a shipper right now?
Sure. So dedicated, I think our perspective is that dedicated should always be a long-term play. And I think that can be a challenging thing to swallow right now, because you maybe can buy your freight at a lower cost in the spot market instead of putting it on those dedicated trucks. So we've certainly talked to some shippers who are tempted to cut at their dedicated fleet. And there too, they're balancing should I make that cut to the dedicated fleet, knowing that it's hard to build back capacity later. So if you're sitting with a dedicated fleet, it could be a challenging position right now. However, I think the long-term play is to maintain that capacity, and the thoughtful shippers, that we've seen, they do that, right? They take that step to maintain the capacity because they know that on the backside of this is a place where they do not want to be in the spot market, and building capacity takes time.
Right.
Related to brokerage, I think this is an interesting one too, right? And I think when you sit in that shipper chair, it's always a little bit of a game of craps, right? And the answer might be, that you need a consistent amount of volume handled by brokers, because in today's environment, you want that volume on the broker because you want to take advantage of that lower spot price, right? So it gives you that. In the future, you need that brokerage capacity to manage the overflow, coming from your asset players. So the answer might be you need a good mix of brokers, or you need a good mix of spot freight, regardless of the market segment, as long as it's fluctuating.
Okay, good. So I know both of you have worked on this project kind of together, and I want to jump into, our drop trailer solution and kind of what that looks like for a customer, or some might call it a power only solution. Where are we at with that, but what does that provide for a customer? What's the real reason behind adding that type of capacity or adding in that magnitude that way?
Sure. So I think the big value to a shipper, a couple big values to a shipper, and what we're trying to share with shippers is we're selling to a group of shippers a drop trailer solution where they need or want that drop trailer within their warehouse experience, right? That to run their yard, to run their facility, they need drop trailers, right? So in an environment like today, they're paying a premium for those drop trailers, even though they're going to be pulled by third-party capacity, because it really makes their whole system flow.
And I can add a point to that. So we provide yard management services for major shippers across the country. And when you're providing those yard management services and you're sitting in a guard shack or wherever else, you'll have a list of carrier SCACs that have drop trailers. And then you try your best to align the orders that are coming through to those SCACs. And if there's not a trailer there from that SCAC, then that order does not get loaded. Whereas if you're in a great trailer solution, you can just continue loading the trailers. You don't have to worry about it being a Hunt trailer, a Schneider trailer, PTI trailer, a Werner trailer. If it's that gray solution, it just helps with the fluidity of loading.
Right.
Perfect. I think then the flip side of it is that, you can get that gray solution potentially with still, that variable price of the spot market, right? So knowing you're going to be able to get capacity, and maybe, the rate is not as locked in as with your asset capacity, but you're getting the value of the drop trailer solution with that spot capacity.
All right, that makes a lot of sense. Good. All right, the last topic of the day I want to jump into is a little bit more in regards to sustainability. And I know last time we talked just briefly about this, and I want to kind of put this out there because I know our next segment is going to include a little bit more deep discussion on this. But Joe and Edward West, what are your thoughts in regards to what a shipper should be focused on and where they're really going to get their bang for their buck in sustainability?
Sure. There's really three areas that I think about with sustainability. It is alternative fuels, and we lead in that space with some low carbon, renewable natural gas solutions. So we can do that, and that's an avenue that shippers can go down. That can take some organizational change, for them to execute that. So that can be a bit of a challenge. The next piece is just eliminating empty miles. And I think, frankly, we're trying to figure out how to communicate this to shippers. We have some great tools by which we eliminate empty miles. We've got technology to pull together the best freight at the best time for the driver to just take miles off the road, right? That's the lowest carbon mile you can have, the one you didn't run.
Right.
So that's that piece. And then, finally, it's the fuel mileage. And again, I know that we've got industry leading fuel mileage. Not sure how to communicate the carbon benefit of that to a shipper, but that's an area where I'd be thinking about. It's an area where they can go and maybe not spend money and just get increased knowledge about their freight.